Welcome back to another episode of Westerospective, where we bring you Game of Thrones, the old seasons, and the new. I'm Geoff.
I'm Ron.
And we haven't done this in like 3 weeks. I was this close to fucking up that intro, like 3 different times. We'd probably completely forgotten what little we had learned from actually doing this show, so God, bear with us for this one.
It's going to be a bumpy ride.
This one is Season 2, Episode 2, The Nightlands. If this is your first time joining us, what we do with this show is this is a revisit of Game of Thrones, having seen all 6 seasons, so you have been warned for spoilers. We are going to be talking how it ties into the current seasons and beyond, so you have been warned. And with that, let's get the show on the road. This episode opens up with Arya and Gendry as a tie-in to how the last episode ended. This is where the gold cloaks have been sent after. Now, it's at the beginning, this is when it's established that Arya thinks they're coming after her, but they're actually coming after Gendry, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, she believes that they're after her, and Gendry's just kind of looking at her like, why would they be after you? But he doesn't say it yet. And then one of my favorite moments of Season 2 is, I always forget his name. What's his name?
Yoren.
Yes.
The recruiter.
Yes. It says something like, everyone's so concerned about getting their throat cut or something like that. Do you have the quote?
I do not.
Okay, I don't have the quote either, but yeah, he says that they forget about what's down below, and he has a knife on the guy's artery on his leg.
Well, which quote he says that I like too was, I don't have it exactly, but I'm gonna paraphrase it, where he's like, you know, once I nick this, I don't think there's anyone around that can unnick it.
Yes.
He's such a cool fucking character, man.
And then to put salt in the wound, he pulls the guy's sword out and throws it to the other guys. He's like, more steel is always welcome at the wall.
yeah, man, like the cojones, because they're fucking gold cloaks. He knows who they're working for.
Yeah. And then he's like, are you in charge? When they first rides up. And the dude just starts talking to him, and then he's like, I asked you a question. He's like, yeah, you did. And without manners, so I ignored it.
And the other important part of this, other than Yoren's a complete and total hard ass, is this is the introduction of Jaqen.
Yes.
Which, you want to know, one of the guys in the show we talked about, like Charles Dance and like Nikolai Coster-Waldau, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but the Jaime actor, right, about they knew where they wanted to go with it from line 1. The Jaqen guy did too.
Yes, he clearly knew exactly what he wanted to do.
The whole way he goes about talking, and it was so fucking cool too, is he's introduced as a prisoner caged up by the Night's Watch. And he sounds fucking crazy.
Yes.
Which he is fucking crazy when you when you find out later on. But he's legit. Like, it's not like he's just fucking insane, you know, just babbling.
Yeah. And I love the entire time the other two are kind of going at her, and Arya's like beat him back with a stick or whatever. He's just sitting there laughing, if you noticed.
I'm so glad they didn't, and it was such an easy character to recast too because of the way they changed their faces. I'm so happy they were able to keep that actor when they brought him back later on, because I was actually expecting, since it was season 5 before he returns again, I believe
4 or 5, yeah,
something around there. Like, that was a long time. He very easily could have been recasted, so I thought that was a really smart
you can recast him just as easily as you can the Doctor in Doctor Who.
Exactly. Yeah. And even the last time you actually see him in this season, he's just changed his face.
Yes.
So they even had taken they had set a precedent of it almost. Yeah. Did you have anything else to add with the opening scene?
No, it was just a fun, awesome way to open any episode to anything.
I actually will say there's a lot more Gendry than I had remembered this early on, and I actually think he's a really cool character. It's a shame that his fucking boat disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle.
I was gonna say, I wish I had more of Gendry because he's amazing in this episode.
That actor is really cool too. He needs to be in more shit. From there, they transition to Tyrion, and this is actually Now, do they introduce Tyrion when he comes in and he sees Varys with Shay? Is that the way the scene
He
goes
comes
down?
like walking across. I don't know if it's his living quarters or whatever. Just whistling.
Oh, he's whistling, right?
Yeah, just merrily along, and he opens his door, and there's the fucking spider himself sitting at his like dinner table, I guess, or his breakfast nook. Yeah, that's like one of the worst people that could be sitting in his bedroom.
Yeah, and this is when they start to establish that, like, Varys and Tyrion, they start throwing threats back and forth. Like, they're not buddies yet. That's not till later on.
That one of my absolute... I remember this once I saw it. It was one of my highlights of the season, actually, was when Varys starts to open the door so they can step out, Tyrion puts his hand on it and stops it, and he gives his threat, and then when he's done, he goes to open the door
you want
and
the
Varys...
Quote? Huh? I have the quote because the quote was fantastic. I'm not Ned Stark. I understand the way this game is played. Ned Stark was a man of honor, and I am not.
Yes, and then he goes to open the door, and Varys puts his hand up and stops it. And
dude.
Do you have his quote?
The look Dinklage gives him is fucking intimidating in that scene. Like,
yes,
Dinklage is kicking ass. Like, this is the season, I think, where he actually won the Emmy and the Golden Globe for Best Actor.
Oh,
this is with seasons all Tyrion.
That makes sense because this is pretty Tyrion heavy stuff this season.
Him being the Hand of the King for the season is one of the best arcs they've ever done.
Yeah,
as far as because they have that really cool thing coming on pretty soon where he does the scene where he tells Pycelle, Varys, and Littlefinger 3 separate stories to see which story will get back to him. I love that whole thing too.
Yes.
I can't wait to see that again. That's a cool thing. Anything else to add with this scene?
No, not with this one. There's a more amazing scene coming up.
They transition to a scene with the small council. Now, you actually have now watched this more recently than I have. What are they discussing in the small council scene?
By the way, that's the first time in half a season that I've seen something more recently than you have.
Right.
We finally caught up to where my wife and I are. So the small council meeting, we come in just at the end of it, right? Cersei. I'm trying to remember.
They're discussing?
I didn't take notes.
Their cousin comes in with Rob's demands.
That's right.
Because he actually wrote in the quote because he's like, "You have perfected the art of tearing up papers."
That's what I was gonna say. That was an amazing quote. And then Pycelle has a raven that had flown in after that. But yeah, it's Mormont asking for more men. That's right.
And the only person in 6 seasons of Game of Thrones who ever takes a fucking second thought and actually maybe we should listen to these guys
is Tyrion.
And the whole small council walks away and it's never addressed by any of them ever again.
I had completely forgotten about that scene altogether.
Me too.
Because, we already know that everybody thinks the Night's Watch is a joke, more or less. But the fact that Tyrion sits there and says, Commander Mormont does not lie.
Mormont doesn't lie. I think that's what he says, yeah.
And then they point out something about the dead men. How can people come back to life? And he's like, he claims one of these dead men attacked him in his bedroom. And he's sitting there genuinely looking at this thing, just like, oh my God, we got to do something. And everybody just gets up and leaves, and they're laughing at him, more or less. I completely forgot that existed.
It's one of the more poignant scenes when you're revisiting, because it's just like, oh my God, you guys, you don't know what the fuck you're doing.
Yes, especially knowing what we know now. It's just like, no. They need men. They need more men now.
So my prediction, we got 2 seasons left, shortened seasons. This one's going to be 7. The last one's probably going to be 6. I think the second to last season is full-blown King's Landing Cersei versus Khaleesi, and then I think the very last story arc is going to be everyone after they figured out that what they were fighting for was bullshit.
Yeah.
And they had this bigger threat the whole time. I think the last season is finally everyone back together who's still alive, all 3 people. They're gonna fight the White Walkers. Everyone's gonna die, and then Gendry and Arya's dog pull back into King's Landing, and that's the end of the show.
George R. R. Martin had already said before season 6 ever aired, I think while they were still filming the early episodes in it, that like they have reached a point in the show, and he had reached a point in the books where everybody's storyline is starting to come back together. So like everyone that you've known to be safe this whole time is no longer safe because they're now reaching a crossroads where they don't need some of these characters anymore. So yeah, I'm curious how that's going to play out. Especially
right now with them all, because like right now when you think about it, now that Khaleesi and Tyrion because Arya's already over back in Westeros. As soon as Tyrion and Khaleesi arrive there, and they even have now teamed up with Dorne. They have literally no reason to ever segue back to that continent. It's all like full balls to the wall, one continent now.
Yes,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's just going to be batshit insanity for the last 2 seasons, I believe.
Because they've already really picked up their pace these last 2 or 3 seasons, but now it's really they can do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah, you want to talk balls to the wall? Season 6 got there real fucking fast.
Yeah, it really did. Let's see. Next up, we go to the Night's Watch when they're back at Craster's.
Yes,
this is the very first time that Sam meets Gilly.
Ghost wants her bunny. He wants her skinned rabbit.
Yeah. This is when they start giving you inklings about what's actually happening with the babies who are boys. I didn't write a whole lot of notes to this. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about with this? Because, like we said previously, you watched it more recently than I did.
Just that Jon Snow, one of the last times that we saw him, Commander Mormont was kind of like at his throat because he was upset about the way he had acted at the meeting in the last episode, and now he's just kind of like crestfallen and a bit of a douchebag. But even though he's a bit of a douchebag in this scene, he brought up this is the scene where he brings Gilly to Jon, right? Or is that later?
Yes. I believe that's now. It might be later, but we can talk about it now.
I was going to say, because you're giving me this blank stare like you don't know where I'm going.
No, you're good.
The points that he all brings up are all valid points, but the kind of diplomatic and commander-esque Jon Snow that we know is just a fucking douchebag in this scene.
And at the same time, he is being a douchebag about it, but what is he supposed to do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I loved the line that he has in that scene, wherever it is in the episode. Like I said, I didn't take notes. I was depending on your notes to refresh my memory since I just watched it. We jump back and forth so much in Game of Thrones that I without push pins and string, keeping it together without taking notes is rougher than I remember. But one of my favorite lines that he had to Sam was he mentioned something like, "Do you want to lose a hand?" And then Sam's like, "No, I didn't touch her." He's like, "No, you just want to steal her." What do you think he cuts off for that?
Yeah. Yeah, there's really, really good stuff.
I didn't touch her. No, you just
Game of Thrones these first couple of seasons are much funnier than I remembered them being, because after it's been a period of time of a few years, all that sticks in your head is people getting decapitated.
Yeah.
Or stabbed at their wedding brutally. It's not the one-liners that stick in your head.
These early seasons are almost happy-go-lucky compared to where we are currently.
The other line that you just made me thought of too that was funny was back in the Arya and Gendry scene where he's telling her I believe we might be jumping back and forth out of order again, but when he tells her she shouldn't talk back to people who are bigger than her, and then she's like, "Oh, I'll never be able to insult anyone then." Stuff like that. There's more one-liners than you'd think.
Zing.
Did you have anything else you want to talk about with that scene?
Nope. Not even sure I was in the same scene, so let's move on.
Well, yeah, we haven't done this in like fucking 3 weeks, so whatever. Just playing balls to the wall. Let's do this. From there, we go to Khaleesi, which I believe is the only Khaleesi scene of the episode.
I believe so.
Yeah, this is when, shocker, that guy they had a sentimental moment with, his head comes back. They were asking for it, man. They were asking for it.
They just had to go and get sentimental.
I don't even know what fucking show they're in yet. They don't even know. So, this is more... I like how Khaleesi is, like, fucking starving. She's like, they're all fucking dying of thirst. And then when Jorah goes up, he first inspects the head. And then he tells her they don't like the idea of a woman leading a Khalasar. And then she says they will like it far less when I'm done with them. It's like, fuck yes, dude.
That was my mental note. She is like in the worst situation, the most desperate situation that I think we ever see her in, more or less. And yeah, her response is basically payback is a bitch.
Oh, dude, I'm just thinking about all
Khaleesi scenes from this point on are just metal.
Especially this season is Tyrion's, and season 3 is really Khaleesi's. That's when you start getting her rounding up all of the troops and everything.
Is season 3 the break the wheel season, or is that 4?
The break the wheel season is either 4 or 5. Season 3 is the one where she has the scene with the guy who's talking in the other language, who she reveals at the end of the scene.
Yes.
One of my top 2 or 3 scenes they've ever done in the show.
Yes, that whole story arc was brilliant.
Yeah, I love her whole rise to power.
Yes.
And I believe that's mostly season 3, and I'm really looking forward to going back through that. That's all I had for the Khaleesi segment. Was there anything else you want to talk about?
No, that's pretty much all there is to that scene.
Next up, we go to Theon arriving at the Iron Islands.
Such a dick.
Oh, Theon. You don't even know what show you're in, bro.
Oh, God. Always acting like he's somebody, and he's about to get put in his place.
Yeah. We're getting to... I'm not looking forward to being introduced to Ramsay all over again. It's like, shit, I gotta watch through 3 fucking years before you get your ass killed again. Balls.
Yeah, no, we have to sit through that again. Again, it's a credit to the actor that we hate him so much.
Oh, yeah.
But, oh my God, Ramsay. You could do a whole podcast just on Ramsay and Joffrey.
Yeah, that'd be a really depressing podcast. You get some more tidbits in the Theon scene about the Iron Islands. He starts talking about how basically they're Vikings.
Yes.
About how they have wives. Literally, his quote is, he says for breeding.
Yes.
That just goes to show you how drastically different these groups of people are. That, when you think about it, really not that far away from each other, but in the context of Game of Thrones, their cultural differences are almost like they're 5 continents away.
Yeah,
because these guys, you think about King's Landing is all of this espionage, and then you go just right over here to the Iron Islands, and it's full on fucking Viking land, Very, very cool. More testament to George R.R. Martin for being able to just imagine all this crazy-ass awesome shit that's so different.
Yeah, no, I love the Iron Islands for the fact that they are basically Vikings, because I in history, one of my favorite things was the Vikings.
Yeah, me too. And then later on you find out in order to be put in charge, you have to literally fucking drown.
Almost.
And then hope that you get, brought back to life.
But hey, what is dead may never die.
It's that metal fucking one of the best.
That's my battle cry in Dark Souls.
What is dead will always die. From there we go to Littlefinger's brothel, and this is goddamn, dude. Aidan Gillen crushes this whole fucking segment, man.
I just made sure I showed no semblance of knowing how this conversation was going to go, because I remember watching this scene for the first time, and this was my wife's first time to watch this scene. And I remember the first time I had ever seen this scene, like all the episodes leading up to this point, you're almost standing right behind Littlefinger, like you're on his team. And then they show you this. Like, just to keep everything in perspective, I guess.
Because he's one of those, like... Before this, he's one of those characters who's, kind of smartest guy in the room, knows it. And yes, he ends up betraying Ned, but you still kind of find yourself liking him, even though it's one of, like, you hate yourself for liking him type of thing.
Yeah. Very sly. But... Varys is doing everything that he does, he says, for the good of the realm, and this makes it pretty fucking clear that Littlefinger's out for Littlefinger.
Yeah,
this is like they've made it. They've said it in the past. This is the first time I think they make it really clear.
So Roz is crying because she's still reacting to the baby being slaughtered in the brothel. His delivery of saying that was poorly handled is so chilling, dude. Because it's like he's talking about that like it was a goddamn like memo being handed out, like it was nothing.
The only thing that really bothers him is that it was out in the open in front of everyone.
His whole thing about I hate bad investments and
his losses being mitigated.
His like the way he talks about, like I'm not really sure how happy she was at the end of it, but my losses were mitigated. You're just like, when you get shown in Game of Thrones like the depths to which people can go, it's even though you should be prepped for it because of how much awful shit they introduce you to, they still manage to top themselves over and over and over and over again. You can't even put into words some of the... But Aidan Gillen is just... He should have gotten a Golden Globe for that scene alone, I think.
Oh, yes. Yes, and I want him in more stuff, goddammit.
No fucking kidding. Next up, we go to one of the best scenes of the season. This is Tyrion. Actually, a quick note. This is the first introduction, I believe, of Pod, because Pod's actually a squire in this scene.
I believe so, because they go out of the way to point out that he is his squire.
So Tyrion is talking with our wonderful favorite character, Janos, who we could not fucking remember who the hell he was. Finally figured that out.
This is the Tyrion scene I was referring to earlier that we were going to be talking about. I love this scene. So much karmic justice in this scene.
You just want to talk about incredible goddamn delivery. I'll not have my honor questioned by an imp. I'm not questioning your honor, Lord Janos.
I'm questioning its
existence.
I'm denying its existence.
Fucking love it. That's that line right there. Give it to him. Give him the Emmy.
That's probably the line that got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is really, really, really fascinating too. Is revisiting it and then watching season 1 and season 2 in quick succession really shows you the dichotomy of what not to do in season 1 and what to do in season 2.
Yeah.
Because in most shows, I think the detail of what Janos does in betraying Ned Stark in season 1 can easily be glossed over. But it's made into a character moment here for Tyrion in showing he actually knows what the fuck he's doing, because, he starts having that conversation with him, like, I know what happened.
Yeah.
Well, why the hell, being the new hand of the king, would I keep you around,
Yeah, he said that... I also like the line that he said, something to the effect of that Ned tried to buy him. He says, yes, he didn't realize you were already bought. That was amazing.
Yeah, this whole scene's fantastic. I like when when he's being dragged out, he starts name dropping, and it's just like it doesn't matter.
Do you have the
right
quote
now?
Do you have the quote? Do you have the quote handy of when he mentioned being friends with the Queen, and he points out Queen Regent, and you're a fool if you think that you're friends with my sister is your friend or something like that.
I didn't write down the quote, but yeah, Janos is talking about how he has friends in court.
Yes.
Yeah. You paraphrased it pretty well.
Yeah.
This is when, and it's cool too how Bronn just fucking appears from behind him.
Yeah.
Bronn's now commander of the City Watch, and then the end cap of the scene is a little bit like the Littlefinger scene.
Yes.
About how you're shown these characters, and in small doses, you really clamor on and love them. Like at this point, you fucking love Bronn. We still do. But when Tyrion asks him after Janos has been escorted out by the guards, and he asks him, if I ordered you to kill a baby, would you do it? Would you do it without question? And then he replies without question, no, I'd ask how much.
Yes.
It's one of those things, too. It's like,
Game of Thrones has a way of, if you dare to think of anyone in this show as heroic, they show you something. They show you basically why you shouldn't think that.
Yeah. Tread lightly about liking anyone in the show.
Yes.
Because A, they're going to die, or B, they're not who you think they are.
Which is, what makes everything so great about the show, and I assume the books also. Like in The Flash, you have a clear-cut line between black and white, but here all the characters are gray. Some light gray, some dark gray, some just fucking evil. But nobody is white. Everybody is gray. It's
probably
just
the closest. Really, the only person you can, because does Jon Snow ever really? Because Jon Snow is probably the closest you get to just straight up being heroic. But even he's done some. He's had to do some shady shit along the way.
Yes. Yeah. No. It's interesting the way all of that is balanced, and I just everybody's history with each other. It's just insane how just thick the web is. Just how complex everything is.
Anything else to add with that Tyrion scene?
No, just the last thing you see is his face after Bronn says that. That's what they end that scene with. And it is not the answer he wanted to hear.
Tyrion's really taken aback, too.
Yeah.
So, next up is Arya. Oh, here is the Arya and Gendry scene, I believe, where they had the quote I just mentioned.
Yes, I love this scene.
This whole scene where they're talking about what makes a battle is also really, really funny. with Meat Pie, I think is his name.
Yeah. Who told you that? A knight. How do you know he was a knight? He had armor. You don't have to be a knight to have armor. Anyone can buy armor. Well, how do you know that? Because I used to sell armor.
I love Gendry, dude. Here's when they established that Gendry is known pretty much all along that Arya is actually a
Why
girl.
are they after you? I don't know. Is it because you're a girl? Yeah.
I really, really like the Gendry and Arya stuff. I hope if they do eventually manage to bring him back magically, or if they even ever intend to do that, I hope they have a little bit more payoff between them.
The Life of Pi sequel is Gendry and Arya's dire wolf in the boat out at sea.
I watched that shit, dude. No, but I hope if they do eventually decide to, pull a Shyamalan and actually fucking bring Gendry back.
He's been dead the whole time.
I hope if they do bring him back, they do have another little payoff between him and Arya, because they did always have a cool character chemistry, I think.
Yes, they did. Even the actors themselves had a cool chemistry on screen.
Yeah, which at this point, fucking Macy Williams is like, what, 11 maybe?
Yeah.
And she's already fantastic. It's like, it's really, really great. Next up, we go back to Theon, and I had completely fucking forgot the creepy ass Yara intro in this show.
You forgot about this?
Until I'd forgotten about it until she pops up in the village, because Theon goes up and he's prancing
and then he just felt dirty.
And then this whole fucking sequence, if you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. But dude, it was one of those things where I remember watching it for the very first time, and then like that reveal later on that she's his fucking sister, and I was just like, well, I just want Purell all around me right now.
Well, he was trying to fuck his sister, yes.
It was just so creepy to me.
Here's the thing. That was so difficult to not squirm and let on anything to my wife. I mean, it was just... Okay, the first time I ever saw that scene, I was like you. The reveal was just like... What? But...
And then you're taken aback, and you're like, oh, no.
Every time I have seen
so
it
wrong.
since... Because, I would get caught back up before the new season, so I've seen it a few times. It is just disturbingly uncomfortable to sit through knowing. And I feel like the first time I ever watched it, that scene is just moments. But watching that scene again, it feels like it's an hour long getting through that.
Yeah, as soon as because I've only, I believe, seen this season the one time originally, I think, but I'd forgotten about it until she popped up in the village, and I was like, "Oh God, not this again!" So, how did your wife react after the reveal? Was she just like, "Oh no"?
She was basically, as soon as that's revealed, she just went, "Oh." I was like, "Yeah,"
and then your brain is a double take of like, shower." So, not only do they introduce Yara, they do introduce, is it Balon, I believe, is Theon's dad? Balon Greyjoy?
I don't know.
Theon's dad, I believe his name's Balon, but yeah, the King of the Iron Islands currently. He has a really, really cool introduction too, I think, just because, Theon's coming in all acting high and mighty, presenting himself like a member of the Stark family, the way he's dressed and the way, he's acting like a prissy member of the Stark family.
Yeah.
And dude, just like the way Balon just destroys him in that room, man.
It's almost painful to watch. I say almost because this is Theon we're talking about.
And then it's actually really cool too about how he starts after Yara walks in and Theon. That actor did that brilliantly too. It was like, oh God, Yara is just like when he realizes what's going down too.
Yeah. What's interesting about this scene though, looking back at it, knowing how Theon's going to react later and the actions he's going to take, you just wonder, this is one of those moments that decides if he does that or not. If he attacks Winterfell or not is kind of decided right here, right now. The way his dad is tearing him down, that's part of the reason why he burns the letter he writes Robb later.
So it's so brilliant the way that they ended up tying in all of the parallels between Ramsay and Theon.
There really are no loose threads in this show either. That's the other insane. That's why I love shows that go 10 episodes, 13 at max, because everything that happens just about is important in some way. Even when you don't realize it, then when it's revealed, your head just, This is also really cool too. Like I was saying, like the way that they ended up tying all the character motivations between Theon and Ramsay. It's like all they ever did, they did because they were trying to prove themselves to their dad. Yeah, and he's. Because Theon isn't a bastard, but he might as well be in their eyes. Pretty much. Because at that point, and for Theon to be there, he's not only giving him shit about the way he's dressed and everything, but for him to tell him, no, your sister is in charge of all the fleet and actually has the respect of our entire kingdom, that's for the Viking clan too, Dude. I think it's pretty apparent how much respect Theon commands talking to that first dude that he meets coming off the ship. Yeah. I mean, the guy, it felt to me like he knew who he was the entire time he was talking to him. He just didn't give two shits. Yeah, he's complete outsider to them. Yes. So next up, they go to a scene of Davos and his son recruiting the pirate fleet. The pirate Davos. Guy is awesome. I love the pirate guy. Yeah, the pirate guy and Davos I fucking love. Salador San is the name of the pirate. Such a cool fucking pirate name. They have that really, really cool scene, too, where he's like,
Salador is talking about how all he wants to do is fuck the queen. And then Davos's son is just like, what do you think she's just going to let you? And he's just like, how would you know? I haven't tried to fuck you yet.
You don't know how persuasive I can be. I haven't tried to fuck you yet.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So, Davos is trying to recruit the pirate and his fleet. I believe they end up saying it's like 30 ships because Stannis has the actual, rightful claim, but he is the most outnumbered of the people going in, so he's trying to recruit. It just goes to show you it's actually good foreshadowing of what's going to happen in that they're so desperate they're recruiting fucking pirates.
Yes. I also love, before we get too far away from it, the Davos line of, he asked Davos if he trusts the pirate dude. And he said, I've known him 30 years, I never trusted him. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, really love all the stuff with the pirate. Did you have anything else to add with that scene?
No, not really. I do have something to add for the 2 episodes of the season we've seen so far, though. I always thought the first several times I watched this that Stannis was just like an out-and-out dick the entire time. But he doesn't seem nearly as dickish now as he does in later seasons. It's like he's almost one of the more likable / sensible people out of all of them at this point.
Really, you don't really see him do anything incredibly fucked up until the Renly thing. But I don't even think he's fully aware of what Melisandre is doing at that time, right? Because isn't he kind of like surprised too when he finds out what happened?
Yeah. Davos is the witness to it.
Yeah. It's just fucking Melisandre, dude.
But yeah, like Stannis later, it's just like, what the fuck? But you look at him now and you look at him later, and it's, if he had never followed her, what could have happened? Because the more he gets involved with her, dude, his character is completely different, when his end comes than he is now. He's a completely different character. His development is insane, and I never really appreciated that until recent seasons.
Yeah, because he's a cool character, but like you were saying, he's not flashy.
Right now he's just a hard character, and I always took that as he's a dick, but he's just a hard person right now. He's a dick later.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They also have a cool little piece of foreshadowing too about how when Davos and his son are walking away, they're talking about how his son could never get him to read.
Yes.
And then, you obviously, if you're up to date, what he eventually does with the prince. Is it Shireen? Is that her name? Something like that? I
believe so. That sounds right.
And then, and now I'm just depressed because I'm thinking about her at the fucking stake, and
and the stag, the wooden stag.
They have eventually. Davos has to kill Melisandre.
Eventually,
I don't know how. I don't know when, but they have to do something along that.
They've got to do something.
Next up, they go back to Cersei and Tyrion, and this is a really heavy scene too. This is when it's established. Tyrion finds out after believing it was Cersei who had all of the bastards killed that it was actually just Joffrey.
Yeah,
and this is starting to show you too. It's like, you've seen Joffrey do some horrible shit, but to just in mass order all these children executed.
What does it say about Cersei's character when, even the viewer before it's said, you believe it's Cersei, and then when everybody says it's Cersei, you're just like, yeah, I can see that. And then you find out, no, it wasn't her, it's Joffrey, and that's a shock. Like, what does that say about what we know about Cersei so far?
It's interesting, too. It made me think about what we talked about in the newest season, about how she had some moments with Tommen, about how Cersei is so stubborn about her children that it's like she can't see the forest for the trees. Yeah. She refuses to accept the fact that she has created a fucking monster.
I don't remember if it's something we've already seen or something that comes later in a later season or this season, but at some point, doesn't she have a conversation with Jaime about, like, comparing Joffrey and the Mad King because the Targaryens kept the bloodlines pure like they were doing. And Joffrey being the way that he is, I feel like she has that conversation with Jaime.
It doesn't ring a bell for me, but you've rewatched them more than I have, so we might be getting to it at some point.
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen that yet, though. If it's in there, it's probably going to be
because
within
I feel like at some point she makes a comparison to him and the Mad King, and it's kind of like, what have we done?
Yeah, probably in, I believe it's season 3, the later half after he's had his hand cut off. That's when he gets back to King's Landing. It's probably in there.
It's probably in there
because that's when Jaime's back, and that's before Joffrey's dead.
All I know is after knowing Joffrey's responsible for baby murder, I just want to go back to episode 1 and watch Cersei slap the shit out of him again.
Or the Purple Wedding's probably a pretty good choice.
Yes.
So Cersei starts talking about, like, oh, you were always funny, she's because Tyrion's wisecracking at her. Mother's gone for the sake of you. There's no bigger joke in the world than that. The look on his face when she says that to him, it's just like he fucking, he doesn't like his sister, but he's almost just like shocked that she would just, come out and say that to him.
She was my mother too.
And my note at the end of this conversation was some of the conversations are in Game of Thrones are more brutal than the actual gore that you see. It's just disturbing in its own right, especially this episode really like between this conversation about how, heavy that is, the Littlefinger conversation, like some of the conversations are just brutal.
Yeah, I've called the show in a loving way dialogue the show because that is what happens more than anything, but it's riveting dialogue. And I don't know how they've done that for 6 seasons.
And then eventually it got to the point of riveting dialogue and crazy ass action sequences where you're just like, good God, give me more.
Give me Scythe on the wall. I want Scythe on the wall. I'm excited to see that again.
Just say Scythe on the wall one more time.
Scythe on the wall. Yes.
So we go back to Davos, his son, Stannis, and Melisandre.
I'm sorry, I just remember Scythe on the wall? I remember Scythe on the wall.
I fucking love South Park. Now I want to watch the South Park Game of Thrones episodes.
I watched last week's again.
It's so good.
I watched it again just to watch it.
We could do an entire fucking South Park podcast too, just reflecting how amazing it is. Okay, you want to know fucking moments in this season that will blow your mind revisiting? When Melisandre is walking up and Davos' son is leaving the room, Melisandre stops him, whispers in his ear something you don't hear. He leaves the room. Melisandre is alone with Stannis, and then he asks her, "What did you tell him?"
Don't forget the look on his face before he leaves the room also.
And then she says, "I told him death by fire is the purest death." And then he says, "Why?" And then it's just kind of dropped. And then when you know what happened, you're just like, Melisandre is completely fucking legit, dude, because she just forecasted how he was going to die.
She's legit, and she lets it fucking happen. Yeah.
Yeah, that I completely fucking forgot that was a thing.
Yeah, I forgot that was a thing too until I saw it.
That blew my fucking mind. Because I love stuff like that in fiction where they will tell you something like that, but it's, kind of brushed under the rug.
What's funny is, and I could be completely wrong about this, and I will find out as we continue going on through the season, but I think one of the reasons why I forgot that part existed of the episode is because you hardly ever see Davos' son, and I feel like we saw him so little that every time I saw him, I'm like, who are you again? Oh, that's right.
Well, especially if I'm right, and I've only seen this season one time, if this is your first time watching the show, they are throwing so many fucking people at you.
Yes.
And throwing so many geographical locations at you all at once where you don't even know, like, you have the context now, But at this point, you don't even really know who Davos is. It's not until this episode they even establish, like he had his fingers removed, but they don't touch on that until later.
I see what you did there. Yeah, it not only are they just throwing names at you, it's not like they're mentioned in passing. They're also mentioning all the politics between them. It's a lot to take in if you're not familiar with the world.
I almost fell out of the show in season 2 because I got lost, and I wasn't until getting further into the show. And it's like there's a learning curve to Game of Thrones where it's not a normal TV show. You have to get a grasp of the mythology before you can actually understand and follow and appreciate it for what it is, like we're doing now. You appreciate it in a completely new light when you actually know what the fuck you're being experienced, you're experiencing. It's just ridiculous. What's
funny is of how many times I have seen the earlier episodes now. I'm still learning so much more since we started this podcast, where I'm actually looking at it and trying to break it down than I ever did just casually watching it.
And not only that, but we're dissecting it with two different people, taking it different ways or seeing different, picking up on different things.
Oh, there's 3. I'm not going to mention any names, but there's 3.
Let's see. Oh, yeah. My last note was Renly's fucked. Renly's totally fucked.
Melisandre first, and then Renly.
Yep. Oh, Stannis.
But that's going to introduce one of our other favorite characters when that happens.
Stannis is the ultimate. You don't even know what fucking show you're in, bro. So, the ending of the episode, we go back to Craster's Keep. Jon sees Craster carrying a baby out in the woods. And this is the first time we've seen a White Walker in a while, right?
Yep, I believe so.
And this isn't like a reanimated zombie either. This is a White Walker.
Yes.
Probably actually the first time since the very first episode, right?
I think so.
Yeah. This is when Jon, starting to get a little bit of an understanding of
what he's dealing with.
Shit's going down. The talk is real. It's not horseshit. And he's immediately taken out by Craster.
And credits.
Credits. Full Kevin Smith credits.
Yeah.
Obviously, we'll be touching upon what happens with this in the next episode. Did you have any other notes that you think we missed along the way?
No, nothing that's sticking out in my mind anyway. I want to say, is the next episode where we see Baby turn full-on Walker while he's holding it?
I don't think that's until actually a couple seasons later.
Is it a couple seasons later? That's an image that's always stuck out in my mind.
Because that scene, I remember actually watching it with the directors after the episode talking about it. I didn't start watching those until season 4 or 5, so I think that's not till later on down the road.
Okay.
I remember the scene you're talking about.
I was curious because, White Walker, Baby, and that's...
Yeah, because you have to remember, they actually show the Night King doing that, right? We haven't been established with the Night King yet.
Yeah,
so it would
that's
have
right.
To be a couple seasons down the road.
Yeah, that's an image that's always stuck with me from the show.
With the frostbite kind of creeping across.
Yes.
Yeah. Very, very... it's good when we can actually specifically in detail talk about what happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you'll check us out more, we not only do Game of Thrones content, we also do a weekly podcast, do some Let's Plays. Coming up pretty soon, we're going to be front-loading for Halloween. It's pretty much our favorite time of the year, so we always like to have some different Halloween-related podcasts and Let's Plays, and maybe a couple commentaries. We discussed that potentially this year. In addition to that, we have social media links for Facebook and Twitter in the description. And if you know anyone else that might also enjoy our content, we would really appreciate the share.
Yeah, while our content is never good, it's usually better than tonight.
Yeah. We apologize for this episode being super delayed. We just had some family stuff to take care of. It'll never happen again. I'm just kidding. It's going to happen pretty soon.
It's going to be happening, end of October.
Yeah, it's going to be happening any fucking day now. Ron.
Speaking of babies.
You're so selfish.
I know, right?
Fucking Craster. For this night and all the nights to come, I'm Geoff.
I'm Ron. And now this watch has ended.